Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, comrades of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron for the New Order, the real one as the Ukrainian Socialist Republic. Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic. God damn it! I'm gonna get that right eventually, and then the series is gonna be over anyway, so it's not gonna matter. Check our economy. Our economy's not good if you can't tell, but we can chill out with the expenditure right now, I think. Probably not the best idea considering... Oh, actually, this helps with our growth. I don't know if we want to cut it too badly, but let's make sure we don't at least get, like, high deficits. Anyway, last video, we've finished off the final bits of the Republican fighters, and now... well, here we stand. The restoration of the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republics. A great reversal has occurred in Eastern Europe. Once thought a relic of bygone era, the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic has bested the various factions of the Ukrainian Civil War and wrested control over the entire Russian Commissariat. Despite its Soviet origin, they are not merely a continuation of a Soviet regime. First Secretary Alexander Shumsky has distanced himself from the ideology of Bukharin, declaring his belief in national communism and emphasizing the continued liberation of the Ukrainian people. As red banners fly across Germany's breadbasket, the world now waits with bated breath to see how the Reich will retaliate. But for now, many Ukrainians rejoice for the proclamation of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. I messed it up again, damn it. Representing a great moment of liberation from decades of hardship and cruelty, a new revolution has begun. Every step Ivan took just wanted to fall into Verdun and stay there. Every wound he had earned ached. His uniform, once a rugged yet proud guard, marking him as nationalist partisan, was a costume of rags, marking him as a traitor. In the dark, he navigated solely by the stick in his hand to avoid stepping through barbed wire, straying from the path. His heart pounded, terrified of what lay ahead, yet longing drove him forward. His fellow partisans had been run off into the woods by the communists and were content to fight their entire lives. Ivan was not. The Germans were gone and the war over. He just prayed that the Reds would accept his surrender, knowing weeks ago he wouldn't have accepted theirs. Sergei knocked on her door before wincing and drawing her hand back. The cuts and bruises on his knuckles and arms remained from the weeks of fighting, practically hand-to-hand the urban war that had ended this popular struggle. A few had healed, but others were fresh from resisting his captors. Imagine his surprise when they held him for just a week and sent him home. After staring at his hand for a solid minute, it occurred to him that nobody had answered. He wondered if she had lived, or if she knew he had lived, or if someone had found someone new, or if... The door swung open, and Sergei immediately found himself in her embrace. Somewhere far away, Ihor's cell door swung open. They'd found his file. It was only a matter of time. He'd been living in fear ever since they threw him into a dismal prison block with the rest of the collaborators, even despite his service to resistance. The only thing that hurt more than the beatings was the knowledge he deserved many of them. Every day, someone was escorted out to be judged and then killed, humiliated, released, or sent back. "It's time," said a voice. He prayed as he was bodily dragged out and smelled the smoke of burning fabric somewhere outside. Yellow and blue corners curled, then turned to ash, then buried. The forest remained dormant, even as Bogdan crept along it as an interloper, trespassing upon a yet unknown tranquility it managed to enjoy in a chaotic land. Yet this intruder was respectful, moving through the foliage without harming a twig. Perhaps this was not done out of respect, but fear. Exiting from the dense gaps between trees, Bogdan found himself stranded in a glade. It would only be a brief interlude from the covers of greenery that surrounded if one that would leave him feeling exposed, easily captured by the bare eye. As he attempted to move swiftly, his fear took hold of him, or he heard the quick rustle of leaves approach behind him. "Don't move!" A deep yell from within the woods paralyzed Badon. His brain screamed to him with every fiber of his being to run for the hills, but his legs only moved to kneel on the grass. Hands above his head. "If you attempt any sudden movement, we will open fire." One of them walked into Badon's line of vision, attired with a plain red band on his arm. "Wait." Badon rapidly finished his thoughts, fished through his pockets despite his fear, grabbing onto a medals and Parson's weapons trained on him. He returned his hands through the air as his red star slipped into the blades of grass. Parson picked up the keepsake to inspect it. "Badon Antonenko?" Badon nodded, hoping they would not call him a thief or liar. "You're a hero." That was a word he did not expect for him to be described as. "How the hell did you manage to survive so long? Come back with us on the truck. We will bring you back to civilization." Badon followed the men back, to where he did not know, but was certainly better than here. Respite in bleak world. For now. I'm starting to get the idea we aren't exactly the good guys here either. Maybe not. Oh, yo. Here we go. Let's take a look at what it's called right now. Dorschaffen. Few cities have witnessed a horrors of war like this fake pretender name that I'm not even going to dignify its fake name again. Yes, I'm detonating this city. If you have a problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. Originally baptized as Sebastopol, it collapsed during the unrelenting thunder of Operation Barbarossa in the summer of '42. During the era of the Russian Tsars and Soviet chairmen, it served as a vital military port for their ambitions in the warm azure waters of the Black Sea. Yet despite the proclamations and the speeches of a new order to reign over Europe, Sebastopol kneels under the Nazi banner in the same way it did under the Russian. This fucking place hosts the largest fleet in Europe, if not the world. Under the watchful gaze of its commander, Karl Donetz, is the envy of all that knows of it. Today, these citizens continue to work, live, and love in the narrow cobbled streets. The former beach resort. Proud to serve the fatherland, the German inhabitants stare into the golden horizon, knowing that their grandchildren and their children will play in the same city they did. Few realize that dream is exactly what the Slavic inhabitants of Sebastopol thought. Perhaps next time, prevailing conqueror will bury the inhabitants in named individual graves. Ouch. I can't blame him for that, but here we go. Jesus Christ, this is easy. The truck pulled up along the unpaved road leading to the farm. A battalion of some 10 or 20 olive-colored soldiers climbed out of their compartment and made their way to their home of the Nosenkos. Poking his head out the porch, Danilo peered his eyes towards the source of the rhythmic stomping of boots and caught sight of the red banner on the truck. The flag was not the same one as he'd known 20 years ago, but it was abundantly clear that it was the same people flying at this time. National liberation? A new life under communism. He'd been conscious enough the last 20 years to know that not only were these the promise untenable under the threat of an inevitably resurgent German hegemon, but that nothing but misery had come from that same red flag the last time it flew over the golden fields of Ukraine. Rather than to waste his old time with your drivel, he took his leave and went back inside. Helena, rising from a wooden chair, stood and watched the band of soldiers approach them. Mesmerized by their dreams for a free, liberated Ukraine, she waited as it came to her, bearing pamphlets and gifts. Was it the youthful optimism in the young woman leading her dream of liberators that convinced her otherwise? Determination of the young leader's gaze was too moving, too powerful was the devotion of these young fighters in their cause, that shook a feeling she had not felt inside of her in a very long time. Hope. You know who's not feeling hope? This one particular unit of Marines. I don't think they're feeling very hopeful. Especially as we move into Berlin. 9 November Stadt. What kind of goofy ass name is that? The city was small, but from the moment Baudon had wandered into it, he instantly felt a difference. For one, there were no Germans here, and he struggled to recall a time when that had not been the case. Without their presence, everything had seemed different. It was lively and hopeful, emotions that had been alien to him. He'd been so used to being kept in the background, an invisible person on the fringes of society, keeping himself small to avoid the Germans from paying attention. Not that they looked for people who looked like him, for Ukrainians were subhumans in their eyes. Here, it hadn't been the same. One of the residents, a middle-aged Ukrainian woman, had spotted him in dirty clothes and missing a few meals, quickly brought him in for a small camp for refugees. He wasn't the only one wandering. There were a lot of stragglers who'd found their way. There wasn't a lot. All of them got some fresh clothes, food, water, and small comforts he'd previously had to scrounge for. Soldiers watched him closely, but there was surprisingly little suspicion. It was too much for him to deal with after a certain point. Baudon knew that all of this was temporary. The Germans were going to return, and he couldn't let himself believe that things would change. To do so was dangerous. Even if he wished he could embrace this community, it had taken him without question. He didn't deserve it. It should be for someone who truly needed it. He could survive on his own. He could endure when the jackboot came crashing back down. Other people deserved the hope. Those who could truly believe in it. In the middle of the night, he snuck out of the city and back into the woods. He did not look back, for if he did, he might have changed his mind. Hope was a poison he could not afford. For hope, it's a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have. I don't know if that's really, I don't know if, I didn't expect I'd be quoting Lana Del Rey of all people, right now, but yeah, here we are. And there we go. Reichgau Gotland. Mama? Where are they taking us? Antonio clasped her son's hand, soft from the sweat of anxiety. Marcus, confused, though beyond the cognitive maturity needed to comprehend the abnormality of the ongoing events in such extraordinary circumstances, and though vividly aware that Ukraine and thus his home was on fire, never he would find his family at the mercy of these rebels. Here in the internment camp, they were so far from home, so far from safety. They hastily raised swastikas on the walls of living quarters and stains where German signage was once nailed cleanly identified the site as a former slave camp. The leaking pipes on the ceiling had active maintenance crews repairing them. Fucking Osplin, I know. From the chatter and murmur from the other captives, it could be made out the distinctive Germanic tongue that the camp housed Dutch and German farmers, just like the Van Nordens themselves. Before his mother could sugarcoat her response with enough white lies to keep Marcus docile, the commissar of the camp gathered the attention of the inmates, announcing in heavily accented German, "You're gathered here until further notice. All the lands you once settled have been liberated and are now to be organized for denazification. Until we deem it appropriate to release you, you shall remain to be re-educated." Peter's face was pale as a ghost. From his mouth came the fatherly instincts, pacifying promises that the Vaterland was behind them. That was only a matter of time before the Wehrmacht returned and restored order, that they would be rescued from the clutches of thugs. And he could not bring himself to believe it entirely, and soon went silent, leaving Antonia consoling Marcus quietly in Dutch. Peter could only shuffle around the perimeter of the gates, watching as the olive men scorned and scowled at him as he passed by. It was clearly the only thing keeping his family alive was their status as glorified hostages. But in the back of his mind, he was relieved that they were not the UPA. True. Oh god, I do not want to think what happened to that poor kid. Or really any of them. Peter might have it coming, but the rest of them didn't. Well, that's not. We'll give it a little bit of tick over and see if it'll update. Month tick, maybe? Oh, can we go ahead and reintegrate Crimea? Perón returns. flourished across Kiev once more. A very special undertaking was occurring in an officer's ballroom. Amateur decorators took upon themselves to denazify the building and freshen it up with more appropriate red banners of the U-SSR. This place would be as beautiful as it was before the Germans sullied it. Perfect for the first meeting of a Poliburo. Shumsky, Rachitsky, Rozdolsky, Holubnitsky, and Zubatenko. It had been years since they were able to meet with each other without having the fears of having a sniper lodge a bullet into their skulls. Each one made their way into the makeshift meeting room in due time. For the first time in so long, the only feeling they experienced was pure joy as they embraced one another. Wiping tears from their eyes, they sat down to their meeting, anxious to get official business out of the way so that they could get back to making up for the time spent apart. Only one motion was on the agenda: the dissolution of the Reich Commissariat of Ukraine, and the restoration of the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic. All in favor, say aye. A resounding aye came from all sitting members. Who am I kidding? Vasil! Bring in the drinks! With business taken care of, one of Shumsky's men brought in an inaugural gift to celebrate the first ever Poliboro meeting. A crate of fine whiskey reclaimed from a bureaucrat's manor. Drinks were doled out to all as the ministers took one night of rest to celebrate as a reparation for the years of fascism they endured. One in praise of the revolution had accomplished, and one for friends to dance the night away. Like treating all the Germans shows like Shades sure is gonna have some really bad repercussions when the Germans swarm over the border. A great deal had happened after the Battle of Kiev. Songs had been sung, pictures had been taken. As last Hitlerites fled back across the Ukrainian border, there had been a great deal of parties, celebrations. All of it, Lyudmila Pavlichenko had tried to soak in before reality crept back in. All across Ukraine were cities to repair. There were bombed roads and ruined buildings. Hospitals, many still bearing the names of fascists, overflowed with the sick and wounded. From her cramped office off the main square, even weeks later, she was still finding remnants of Nazi administration. She had a good vantage of all the work that needed to be done. Lyudmila flexed the muscles in her arm and turned from her desk towards a window. In the center of a square below stood an empty pedestal where Hitler, upon a horse, had once stood. She smiled, knowing that even with all the work to do, Kiev was at long last free. Ukraine and its people no longer lived in fear of systematic annihilation. They no longer trembled beneath the jackboot. The entire country was breathing free for the first time in decades. In her heart, she felt a sense of peace, a sense that she had finally lived up to the promise she made to her husband all those years ago. Lyudmila continued to stare upon the square. She had not noticed a great bird of prey perched on the building opposite, the red flesh of some animal in its mouth. The enormous bird seemed to stare at Lyudmila in her tiny office for several moments, scowling. Then it opened its terrible black wings and soared westwards, away from Ukraine and towards the expanses beyond. There, far beyond Lyudmila's sight, things were already moving. A light amid darkness, a ship before the storm. I keep glancing over Germany to see a very scary warm and scared. Well, I think, like, realistically, out of all the German successors who could take control, like, the only ones who I can think of, Speer, I don't think would even humor the thought of communists. Maybe the collabs he might let go. But communists, there's no way he's just letting live freely. Bormann, I don't even think he'd humor the Republicans. Goring is conquer crazy, at least in this current iteration. The only chance a communist Ukraine would have is probably if Heydrich won. And that's only because Germany's gonna start falling apart at any fucking moment. And with the new lore that's gonna take place, that's not gonna be the case for much longer. Let's be real. So yeah, not much you could say there. So as fun as this is to have a free communist Ukraine, I don't see how it's going to change. Now, I know with these successors, for German rework, it might change up a little bit, but even now, I don't know how long this is going to last. We'll probably just have to wait until the whole Germany rework comes out, but that's later. This is now. And right now I got end things here, but thanks always for watching, gang. Like if you like, dislike if you didn't, leave any comments or feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any off feedback you might have for me. Check out my various links down in the description box below. You all know the deal by now. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.